You're the GM of the Orioles. Do you make that move? Seeing where the Orioles are, what they have, and their window, do you make that move?
Well, Kratzy gets back for what the ask is.
Dan O'Dowd, longtime former general manager of the Colorado Rockies, friend of ours. You can watch him on MLB TV. And, of course, make sure you check out the incredible virtual reality software that he put together called Win Reality. You can get to that a little bit later on as well. It is trade deadline season. So, Dan, great to see you, of course, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, great. Let me just jump in real quick, Scotty, and just tell you guys congrats, man. You guys are killing it. I am so happy for each and every one of you. You've got the best thing going that's out there right now. So it's a privilege to be on with you, but I'm really, really happy for all you guys, especially you, Bronny.
Thank you. That means a lot. You know what I'm putting into this, and these guys too. You got
Yeah,
the OG
exactly,
crew
yeah.
today too. These are the everydayers, Kratz and AJ. So, all right, let's do some business first, shall we? We've been debating Tarik Skubal, and he's been the theme of the day. So I wanted to start there. Why does it make sense or not make sense, depending on which way you sway, for the Tigers to trade him when they've been building up for a while, and you would think they have some room to spend money in the offseason?
Okay, well, let's just start from a Tigers perspective, why they might even consider it. I think they got 2 years of control, and then he's a free agent. He's had past health histories. And I think you have to – the one thing when you're running a team, guys, the one thing you have to do is you have to be very honest where you're at in the process. I mean, are you good enough to win? Are you still a few years away? What is your window of opportunity to look like? I mean, when I look at the Tiger team, I just don't see the positional player impact that supports the impact of what he actually is bringing every fifth day. Saying that, man, they'd have to get so much back for him. And the only club I think that matches for me perfectly for them are the Orioles. And I'm just not sure I see the Orioles trading the prospect capital it would take to bring that kind of talent back, though I think he's just the perfect fit. If you're a Tigers, you have to say, like, we're never going to replace this guy in what we get back. But if you build your team in the aggregate for me from an offensive standpoint, even though they've gone through a rebuilding process, they simply have missed on some things. And I think it'd be easier if Manning was healthy and Mize was healthy, pitching well, and Olsen was healthy. I realize that when they move Skubal from the equation, like, where are they at? But I think if you keep the big picture in mind, I don't think they can be competitive with the position player team they have in place. They just don't have enough aircraft carriers to win a championship.
All right, you said the Orioles don't make that move. You're the GM of the Orioles. Do you make that move? Seeing where the Orioles are, what they have, and their window, do you make that move?
Well, Kratzy gets back for what the ask is. I mean, if you're sitting in the Tigers chair, I don't know how you make this move, and Holliday is not a part of the deal. So they're going to choke on that, the Orioles standpoint. If it's Kjerstad, if it's Mayo, if it's those kind of players who all fit for the Tigers exceptionally well, absolutely. If it's Holliday, I may choke on that one a little bit, but there's a deal to be made there. And if I'm the Orioles, he's the only pitcher, like even Crochet, who's got like that kind of upside is Skubal. I mean, he just hasn't pitched enough to warrant the huge prospect capital deal because you really don't know what you're going to have in August and September this year. I think he threw like 12 innings last year. He's got pushing 100, over 100 now. I don't know, what his limits are going to be. I mean, Skubal just checks off every box. If you look at Burns and Skubal and Rodriguez going into postseason, I think the Orioles are in a position to win. And then he's controllable beyond this year where Burns isn't. So I think it extends their window of opportunity. So if I'm the Orioles, I'm doing it. I'd like to do it without having to put Holliday in it. If I'm Detroit, I'm probably choking on the fact. I mean, they're eventually going to have to come to grips with the fact that the Javi Baez signing, they're going to have to eat that one at some point in time and move on. Boy, it'd be a lot easier moving on if that kid's playing shortstop for you, because then you can begin to see a future for that team. If they've got him and they've got Kjerstad in the outfield, maybe Mayo that's running over to first base, because I think the young kid's going to be okay at third base. I think you begin to see a future for them and some aircraft carriers starting to develop for that organization on the field.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned Crochet and the White Sox, Dan. What are they going to do? Do you move if you're Chris Getz? Do you move Crochet? You're obviously going to move Tommy Pham. Do you move
Yes.
Eric Fetty, who has another year?
AJ, I'm moving everybody.
You're just starting over. You're blowing it up and starting over.
I think they've already made that decision. I think they're just too far away. I will say, if you dig in on the White Sox system, and I had a chance to do that today, I mean, I love their pitching prospects in their organization. They're way deeper than I realized from a pitching prospect standpoint, but there's a dearth of position players. So I think if you, for an example, AJ, if you took Crochet and moved him to the Orioles, or you moved him to the Dodgers, who I think are going to be more interested in him than any organization because I think they can protect his innings with the depth they have. And if you move Roberts and you went to Seattle, who I think is a great fit, and we can argue what kind of player Roberts is. I think he needs to get a change of scenery. And AJ and Kratz, there are certain players that just to get stale in an environment, and you're never going to see how good they are. I'd love to see him play with something on the line day in and day out. But I'm telling you, Seattle, for me, may have one of the deepest player development systems in the game. And I think they match perfectly with what the White Sox needs are with a young catcher. They have infield depth. They have outfield depth. They just have a lot of players that aren't that far away from me for the White Sox. So if I'm the White Sox, I am rebuilding. I'm moving every piece that's not a part of what I think we're going to be good at. And believe it or not, it's probably 2027 for me. Everything that I'm building is I'm looking at players that can impact us in 2027. I would not bank on the fact that Crochet is going to be there or healthy. And I would not bank on the fact that Roberts is going to play with the type of energy level and focus in an environment that's just not a winning environment.
All right, Dan, you are my spirit animal in an ex-GM because all the things you're saying is what I've been saying for a while. So I appreciate you saying these things, but now it's time for my trade. And you need to evaluate my trades and say GMs will never do this because why? Jameson Taillon is signed through 2026. The Cubs, clearly what they have is not enough. The last 2 years, they just fall short consistently. If you are the Cubs, do you trade a Jameson Taillon in a market that is starved for starting pitching? He is doing this right now. I get it. He signed to 2026 and you still want to win, but this allows you to be in the Corbin Burns sweepstakes for this offseason.
Yeah, no doubt. I totally, Kratzy, absolutely. The Cubs are in a conundrum because they're kind of boxed in so many positions on the field with Dansby and Horner, who they probably could move Horner, but they probably don't want to. Suzuki, Happ. I just feel like those guys are part of what they do. So I still feel like they're this gap between being a competitive club and being a great club. When you look at Jameson, he's a really good starting pitcher, but he's a contributor. And if you can value him higher than what he is, and I think in this market you might be able to, I think you need to take advantage of that opportunity and bring back more depth because I think in the aggregate, they're just not good enough to win a championship just yet.
All right, I'll take over. Or Kratz, you got another one?
I got another one. Do the Mariners balk at this because they are so abysmal on the offensive side? And I know Nick Castellanos isn't having a great year, but hear me out with this. They need some type of offense. Nick Castellanos for Tyler Saucedo and who else I have? Austin Voth, two guys that they keep bringing up arms. The Phillies need bullpen arms. That's a righty and a lefty for the Phillies bullpen. But ultimately, that opens up monetary about $20 million a year for them to spend on their roster. And if they can add a outfield bat, but adding to their bullpen. And really, this is the trade that I think the Mariners should make because they need some type of offense because I don't think they're going to go after a Vlad Guerrero, who I think would be the greatest pickup for them.
I'm a huge Castellanos fan. I think he's a big-time offensive player. I think he plays well in big moments. I'll ask you, the two ex-players on here, the concern I'd have as a GM at the trading deadline is I think chemistry on a club is tethered together in a way that can come untethered very, very quickly. The Phillies have something, and I realize Castellanos' weakness in right field. I realize all the issues that he's had. it's just this Phillies team fits together exceptionally well, both in talent-wise, personality-wise, and chemistry-wise. Man, I'd be really, really cautious as a GM to do anything. Even if I'm looking at all the shortcomings of player X, I would be very concerned about, interrupting, which is so hard to create within our game, is when the sum of the parts are greater than the individual parts with superstar players. And they've got that in Philly. And I mean, I'd be very cautious about trading anybody that would interrupt that in the course of the day in and day out grind of what baseball is.
True. Chemistry is important, Dan,
It is, but there's not a lot of GMs. AJ, honestly, I don't think that's valued in this game the way it should be. I think David Dombrowski will get this completely because he just gets it as a GM. But I think we're such a talent-driven evaluation of players that we just miss on guys that provide things that go beyond what you can measure in a statistical equation or an algorithm.
Here's the thing I'll say about that, though. Every team is looking for it, and sometimes you don't think you're going to have it, and then wham, it all hit. Look at your Rockies from back in the day, right? You guys were struggling, and then all of a sudden you win 25 out of 26 or whatever that crazy run was. You went back, So I think, teams are looking for it. They just don't know how to find it because, one, the biggest thing for me is you don't have people that were in the game running the team, so they have no idea. They're just like, oh, it's fantasy baseball. It's like A, B, C, D. I'm going to draft the best team. Right now, there are some teams that have players that aren't very good at either. Certain GMs are better at it. But yes, it also, when you find it, like the Phillies, you stick with it. Now, you say whatever you want about Castellanos' defense, say whatever you want about the way he's hitting, but they have something. I've seen it. You've seen it. Anyone that's been around the Phillies has seen it. They just are like this. It's like every piece fits, and nobody can tell you why. It just does.
Yeah, so to me, I'm just looking to bring in a piece. If it can make me a lot better, like even a Luis Roberts, who I have serious question marks on a lot of those intangibles. But I think if you take a guy like that and you put him into the mix of that Phillies culture, he's going to be the best player he can actually be. I don't know if they line up on that kind of deal. But I think whoever they bring in, to me, just is a complementary piece or potentially an impact piece. But I would not take away anything Kratzy from the mix that's currently there. I'd love to add to their bullpen. I think you're 100% right. I'd love to add another arm to the bullpen. I'd love to add another right-handed bat into the mix in the outfield. I just don't want to subtract anything from the core of. They got the it factor, and it's just so hard to create and find within our game.
All right, Jen, I got to ask you about your old team. I mentioned the Rockies. What are they doing?
Yep.
Are they ever going to do something? Like, okay, I know you were the GM there for a long time, and you guys had some success. But what they're doing now is like the same old. They're just like retread. And I know they have Chris Bryant. They're kind of stuck with him because he's hurt. But like, when are they going to just go outside the box and say, all right, we're going to try something completely crazy? Because nothing they've tried really has worked since you were there. Like, they trade Arenado, they bring up this guy, they try this, they do that. Nothing has worked. What can they do there in Colorado to not only make them relevant, but try to get them to win?
Well, I do think, and Scotty just heard me say this line a lot, so it's a cliche, but I'm going to use it again. In the game of baseball, you can avoid reality all you want. You just can't avoid the consequences of avoiding reality. I think at some point in time, the Rockies just have to embrace reality and stop running from it. Let's use Ryan McMahon for an example in this year's trading deadline. I mean, I was a part of drafting Ryan McMahon. I think Ryan McMahon is an incredible human being. He's an above-average defensive third baseman. Do you realize this is the first year that he's got an OPS plus above 100 playing in Coors Field? Every other year it's been in the 80s and the 90s. And so, like, in my mind, this is the top of his value. And you've got a built-in replacement for him. You sign Chris Bryant. Because I think the Toglia kid at first base, I know his numbers aren't great, but he's got 16 home runs and Ryan McMahon's got 14. He's 25. Ryan McMahon is 29. I think the kid could figure it out. And so, like, just play Bryant at third and play Toglia at first. He's 25. He may turn into a core player for you. They have to make more decisions where they stop thinking about winning the game that's in front of them that night and start thinking about how do we build something here that's sustainable for the future, number one. I do think they've got some good prospects in their system. I think they just had a hell of a draft. But it doesn't matter. They don't have enough. They got to keep layering on top of layering the players they have. And then honestly, guys, for me and looking back at it, I think they need to take an approach of what the Tampa Bay Rays do, is that they can't fall in love with their players because altitude changes the physical composition of players over a period of time. It's just a really hard place to play. They have to trade players when they're at the top of their value, know how popular they are within their marketplace. They need to trade them for guys that are major league level, triple A level, or double A level, because those guys, none of them are far from the big leagues. And then they use their draft strategically after the first round to take younger kids that they can give a long time to develop to that have upside impact ceiling. So if you ask me what I would do if I was running the franchise again, I'm telling you exactly what I would do.
All right, I'm going to my old team now. Luke from the chat brought up a Royals question. The Royals need high leverage strikeout relievers. And the question is, do the Rays and the Royals connect on a trade for Adams or a local guy to Kansas, a Missouri guy in Fairbanks?
Yeah, I do think they need another reliever. Guys, if they don't get more bats in their outfield, their offense is not sustainable. I mean, they just don't get any offensive production out of their outfield really whatsoever. So you can't just – Bobby Witt is, like a superstar. Like he's 2 aircraft carriers. But to expect him to carry the team over the next 60-plus games, I think it's just too hard in our game, and you guys know that. And so as much as they need – I think they added a strikeout arm in Hunter Harvey. You got to remember now, they traded their number 2 prospect in Caden Wallace, a great-looking young third baseman at the University of Arkansas, and their sandwich selection in this year's draft to get a right-handed setup guy. So it's an organization that is not deep in prospects because they haven't had good drafts over the last few years. In fact, they've been abysmal. And so, they just don't have a whole lot to trade from. So if I'm prioritizing what kind of talent I have left to move, because I do think there's an opportunity for them to win this year, and that's great for the whole franchise. Great ownership, really good people in the front office. I think they need to address the offensive part of their game, specifically in the outfield.
Okay, I got about 3 minutes till break. I'm going to try to get 3 quick hitter fan questions in here, Dan. You know I love to bring in the people. So first, a follow-up to what we talked about earlier. Vincent asked, crochet for Norby and Mayo. Do you think either side says yes or no to that?
I think the White Sox are going to want more, honestly. First of all, I think if you look at the White Sox team of the future, I think Jacob Gonzalez is playing second and Montgomery's playing short. So I think it's a dearth of outfield. Now, again, they may have missed on Torkelson. Mayo's a great fit for him, but instead of Norby, I think Kerstead has got to be part of that deal. I think he's an impact player, questionable defensive skills, but I think the guy can really hit, and I think they just need to come to grips with the fact that the Benintendi deal is what it is, and Kierstead should be playing every day in left field for him. So I don't make that deal if I'm the White Sox if I'm not getting a bat like Kerstead and Mayo in the deal.
Okay, what about for the Pirates? William said Jazz Chisholm to Pittsburgh, and he brought up Tamar Johnson, Jack Sawinski, and a pitching prospect. That seems like a lot if they're taking on the money, too.
Yeah, I don't think Chisholm's a great fit in Pittsburgh. I think Chisholm needs to go to a team like New York. The veteran leadership on New York is going to get him to focus on the game more than his brand. And I'm just not sure that'll take place in Pittsburgh. And so I don't like Chisholm. I like him as a player. I just like to see him go in an environment where his play is scrutinized, how he goes about playing day in and day out is held to a really high standard, not a younger club that's still developing and learning how to win.
Yeah, be with a guy like Judge. I like that a lot. Dan, you're the best. Yep. Thank you so much. And a shout out to winreality.com, best spot for
thanks, guys. Yeah, thanks, Scotty.
Body mechanics, swing timing, AI, VR, baseball, softball training, the whole deal. Just check out the website. You'll get a lot more there. But Dan, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me in.
We do want to shout out our sponsor today, AG1. Their in-house team of doctors and scientists and researchers with third-party experts on studies that help to validate the benefits of AG1 stand out to us, and that gives you one less thing that you have to research and worry about. And 97% of people in a research study felt more energy after 30 days of drinking AG1. Kratz, you look very alert and well-rested. You might have had a little AG1 to drink this morning already.
It's the game's easy. I actually missed my AG1 this morning. Busy morning this morning. I missed a lot of things, but yeah, I notice a difference when I don't have it. Like, it's almost like, I know this is weird. It's probably not medically sound, but I yawn more in the mornings that I don't have my AG1 by 10 o'clock. Like, it sounds so dumb, but it's like something's just a tick off when I don't have it because I've been consistently taking it.
I like that. I think, we need more AG1 for Kratz so that he doesn't yawn. That would be
Or I just need to take what I have.
Yeah, or that. They're constantly putting their formula to the test. It's trusted by experts and medical professionals, and it's backed by multiple research studies. So you can see it on the bottom of the screen right now, or if you're listening to the pod, take ownership of your health. Visit drinkag1.com/foul, or you can hit that QR code. We'll put that QR code up a few more times during the show here, but it's what we recommend here to support whole body health. And you can start your journey with AG1 by getting a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/foul. Got to go to drinkag1.com/FOUL.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.